Welcome, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. I know other people are coming in still. Welcome to the Cooperative Extensions workshop on rangeland health and grass survey. This is exactly what Cooperative Extension is here to do, is, find out what it is that you guys want more information on, what kind of training and additional knowledge do you need, let us know, and then we'll work together to put that together for you all. So as your agent, I'm the agent here at the Hopi tribe. My name is Susan. I work for, the whole region as well. So tonight's session will be taught by two of our extension specialists, Anita Thompson and Joslyn Beard. They both are relatively new to our extension office in Arizona, but they've been doing a lot of work for a long time. And they'll tell you a little bit more about who they are. And then we'll go from there. So I'm going to pass it over to both Anita and Joslyn. Take it away.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Anita Thompson. I am the Assistant Area Agent in Rangeland and Livestock for Navajo, Apache, and Northern Greenlee counties. And I do cover a lot of the livestock and the rangeland, as well as I help out with some of the gardening and the horticulture, and I basically do a lot of everything. So tonight, though, we're going to focus on rangeland and on grasslands. Joslyn, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Joslyn Beard. I am the Livestock Extension Specialist for the state of Arizona. My office is in Tucson, but I serve the entire state. So basically, if you guys need anything and you get a hold of Susan, Susan can get a hold of me, and I can be there. So my joke is I just need about a day's notice. I might move that to 2 days notice, but I'm more than happy to help you however I can. My background is mainly beef cattle, and so I've done a lot of research and extension work talking about, cattle grazing natural resources in the western United States on rangelands, and so I'm super excited to talk to you guys tonight about some of that.
Perfect. Well, let's jump in. All right, so we're going to just start off here with the introduction of what rangeland sampling is, and it's kind of going to feed through the entire night on to talk about building up through talking about grasses and nutrient levels, and ending with talking about cost-benefit analysis, and then talking about how to build your own sampling devices. So we're going to start off with what is rangeland? And this is the definition of rangeland. So this is what we're going to talk about tonight. What is rangeland? What is sampling? Why do we sample? Taking an inventory, assessments, creating a monitoring plan. So we're going to start off with what the definition of a rangeland is. And we're going to use the NRCS definition. And so it's described as lands in which the indigenous vegetation is predominantly grasses, grass-like plants, forbs, and possibly shrubs or trees. And it can include native and introduced plants, disturbed lands that have been revegetated naturally or artificially. And then it can also include grasslands, savannas, shrublands, deserts, all kinds of different things. So rangeland is kind of a large term that covers a lot of different areas. And the management normally occurs through grazing, but it can also occur through fire weather and sometimes through cropping systems in agriculture. But mainly it's grazing. And then so a lot of times people will say grassland, and it's interchangeably with rangeland. Up here we call it high desert grasslands or Colorado plateau grasslands. But actually a grassland describes more of just an area that has a specific grass on it or a grass component. When we're talking about rangeland, we're really talking about that grazing component and browsing component. So whether it be cows, sheep, or goats or anything that can graze or browse. And so then we're going to talk about what is sampling. Sampling is a process of taking a piece of data or a subset of data and then using it to represent an entire population or a site or an area. And so what basically we're doing is we're looking at a large area that's going to be too big to count, and we're taking a small part of that and we're saying, okay, I have X number of this kind of grass in here in this little tiny area, and then multiplying that out saying that now I actually have 10 times as much. And how we do that is we take an area, and in it, there's a population. So you're going to see a lot of letters. Those letters are a population within that area. And you can pretend they're grass or deer or cows or anything that makes sense to you, but I'm using letters just for the ease. And so we're asking ourselves how many of the letter A are in this entire area. So we can count each A in this box, and that's called taking a census. And I think a lot of people are familiar with the term census from taking the Census Bureau, who goes around to everyone's house and counts how many people are in the house. Well, when you count every single one, it's called a census. If we were to go out and count all our grassland or rangeland, it'll take forever. It's just not something we can do. So what we can do to sample it is we can pick an area, count the A's in that area, and then use that to determine how many actual A's are there. So for this area, I'm going to divide it into 10 sections. And so I will count some of the A's in this section, and that will be what we call a representative sample of that population. Remember, the population is all those letters together. So I picked this random square there on the side, and I counted 5 A's. And remember, this is a sample, so you'll never be 100% correct. So if I multiply out by 10 sections, I should have approximately 50 A's in my population. But is there really 50 A's? So maybe we want to get a little bit more specific. So we want to be a little more precise. So the bottom, I decided to take another sample or representative selection. So the bottom, I counted 4 A's in that section. So I did some math. 5 plus 4 is 9. And then I divided that by 2 for 2 sections, and I got 4.5. So then I multiplied that by 10 sections. So I took the average of the 2 representative samples, and then I multiplied that by 10. And then, so that gives us 45 approximately 45 A's in our population. So right now we're like saying, okay, there's 45 A's in this box. So for funsies, let's take one more sample. So in the middle, we counted 4. So I did the math, did the same thing, added them together, took the average, and then multiplied by 10. So then that equals 43 A's in our population. So I'm feeling a little better about my data right here. So now the actual number of the A's in the population or the census is 44. So I actually counted every single one, and there's actually 44 A's. So I'm feeling pretty good about my sample. First sample, we estimated 50. Second sample, we estimated 45. And the third sample, we estimated 43.3. So you can see as you take more samples, you're going to get closer to where you want to be. And if you have a background in statistics, then you know that you're bringing in a lot of this information that's going to be sampling design and probability and all kinds of things. But in this case, we're sticking with just the basics that I feel comfortable with my data. I took 3 samples, and I'm pretty close to what the actual census was. Now, why do we sample? It's because we want to get a picture of what is out there on the rangelands. But we don't want to get overwhelmed with too many details and too much complexity, or we don't want to spend all our time out there. We've got other things that we need to do, but we still want to work towards our stewardship goals. And we want to do it for minimal cost and for the most accurate results we are comfortable with. And so what we have is we have 4 bullseyes. And if you look at the top left bullseye, it's low accuracy and low precision. So this person who is shooting this bullseye, they're just shooting, and there's really no grouping. There's not a lot of accuracy. They only hit the target in the middle once. It's kind of all over the place. There's not a lot of precision. But then the next target over, you're looking at low accuracy. So it's not towards the center, but they're very precise. So all their shots are grouped in one area. Then in the bottom left, the high accuracy, look, all those are pretty close to the center of the target, but there's still some precision issues. And then in the center, you have your high accuracy and high precision. That person is like a great shot. And this is what we think of when we think about sampling is if you want to go more towards one of the low accuracy, high precisions or high accuracy, low precisions, because high accuracy and high precision is almost impossible. And low accuracy precision does not give you any good data. So we use this particular image to help us determine kind of where we want our results to be. And so we can sample a lot of different things. So we can look at if there's an influx of invasive species that are toxic to livestock and want to monitor the increase or decrease of those invasive species. So let's just say on the range, you're noticing more cheatgrass coming in, and cheatgrass will outcompete native grasses. So you want to monitor that. So you can sample for that. our cattle, goats, or sheep weights are lower than expected, we want to evaluate the grass utilization. We want to do a native grass seeding project and we need to monitor it. We want to know what grasses and types are out there and in what amounts. There's the cheatgrass example. We want to establish baseline rangeland health levels to determine what needs to be improved or maintained. Or we want to establish a series of rotational pastures for the rotational grazing practices. So, and this is just like a short list. There are a lot of reasons why you can actually, you can sample, sky is the limit. But sampling is extremely complex. Here's two of my textbooks that I got in my college career. So the best thing to do is work with your local rangeland specialist and determine a good sampling program and discuss site selection, your attributes, what time you're sampling, how often, your accuracy, number of plots, all kinds of things. And so when we're sampling, we're going to start a process. So we're going to start taking an inventory. Inventory is always your starting point. It's what you have right now. It's what you have at this point in time. And it's a snapshot of what is available for you to use. So it can cover you can do everything you want that you want to be included. So you can do whether it's a bunch grass versus a sod grass, or native versus non-native grass, or different growth habits. You can do whatever you want in your inventory. So you can also, your head of cattle, your miles of fence, your number of corrals, your supplement stations, your drinkers, different invasive species. And it can be as simple or complex as your program requires. So federal grazing programs or parties receiving federal funds generally will have different levels of required inventories, and private ranches or holdings can tailor their inventories to their needs. So it just kind of depends on where you need to be, and that's why it's good to check in with your rangeland specialist. Some very important notes about inventory. Make sure it's written down or recorded, or both if possible. Papers get lost, computers crash, and you have to have your baseline in order to be able to move on your assessment. And only make it as complex as you absolutely need. Time is money, and you do not need to know where every piece of grass is. You want a good idea. You're not looking to be 100%. So for the amount of time you put into something, you want to make sure that you get a little something back. So if you decide that you're going to sample every single aspect out there, you're going to spend all that time doing that. And consider using tablets to they call it VGS, or on the tablets, a program that University of Arizona has. Or you can use like a Samsung tablet or some different tablets. But always back up your files. If you use pencil and paper, only use pencil and paper, or Sharpie and paper. Regular pen will run. And if you spent the entire day sampling and you've been out and you've got to move cows and you've got to go to work, and all of a sudden you get back and everything's smudged and your data's gone, there's nothing worse than you have to go do it again. Keep good records and write clearly. Do not use shorthand. Make notes on everything, because in 6 months, when you're trying to remember what my example is, 2 CW, rice, heavy clay, no drink means, I forgot completely what that meant until I had to go back and say, okay, I found 2 cows in the plot. I had a lot of rice grass, heavy clay, no compaction, and no drinkers in the area. So instead of writing shorthand, because you won't remember, write it all out. And then there's a few inventory guides out there, and you can determine if one of these is good for you. I like sampling vegetation attributes, which is a multi-agency collaboration, and then Guide to Rangeland Monitoring Assessment is another one that is Arizona specific. And then we have some Rangeland Monitoring specific guides and tools on our webpage, and I put it on the top, and we are sending out these PowerPoints if you would like them, that has this information. So it has everything from the interagency technical guides and textbooks to how to do a Parker 3-step method, to obtaining and interpreting utilization data on rangelands, which I did send the paper to Susan to pass out. So you finished your inventory, now you assess what you have. So I counted all my grass, I figured out everything I wanted, and now I'm going to assess what I have. And so you're basically taking what you have and you're comparing it to an ideal of what you want. So if you're looking at Rangeland Health, your inventory would include like ecological site measurements, and then you could compare it to agencies that have gone out and done these standards, and you can compare it to what would be a healthy or non-healthy seeming rangeland. And it will give you an idea where your site stands, and then it will give you the ability to develop your future goals. And so like you finished your inventory and you're starting your assessment, and you've noticed that there's an increase of invasive grasses. And they have no protein value, and it's on your summer range, and you really want to fix that because you're going to put your cows out there for quite a while on your summer range, and they're going to need to get some sort of value out of that. So then you could set your goal, and you could say, well, then I'm going to seed in native grasses next year with some good protein, some grasses with some good protein values. Then I will remove the pastures from rotation for a year or so, maybe up to 2 years, to let those reestablish. So there's my goal. Then you would set your monitoring plan after that. So you've done your assessment, and now you're like, okay, I'm going to monitor to make sure this is what's happening. So I'm sampling the summer range pasture at an interval, whether it be once a year, 3 times a year, something like that, to make sure my grasses are establishing and they're staying healthy. And then the nice thing about monitoring plans is they allow for adaptive management. Something didn't work, then you can change it. So it's not like you're set in stone. It's the law. You got to follow this. It's like, okay, well, that seeding didn't work, didn't take. So what can I do now? And so we call it planning smart. So you want your goals to be specific. You want them to be measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. Specific, you need a specific idea of what you're looking at. It can't be vague because then it's hard to measure those goals. And measurable, how do you know what exceeded? And how do you know, like, how can you check the box that said, okay, now I'm feeling better about my rangelands? Is it visual? Is it, is it written? Is it data? Is it just that feeling that, okay, I'm good? And is it attainable? Did you make your goals too lofty? Is it relevant? And will it meet your objectives for your ranch or for your cattle or for what you're doing? And what is the deadline for reaching the goal? Is it 2 years? Is it 4 years? Is it 1 season, grazing season? Okay, that was fast. And I have 4 minutes and 19 seconds for questions. In that case, because you have difference of vegetation type, you are actually going to what we call stratify. And so you're gonna group it into that vegetation type. And then you're going to sample independently those different vegetation types. It would be like comparing apples and oranges. They're both fruit, but they're not the same fruit. So it's the same kind of thing.
Or I'll send you their contact information so you can reach out to them when you have your own direct questions. And you'll be expecting an email from me with more resources. So everyone have a safe night. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone. Good night.